If you have a team in Follow Up Boss of 2 or more users and you're not using pawns, you may be missing out on some really powerful, advantageous tools. So here are some 7 recommended pawns for you to set up in Follow Up Boss. Pawn number 1, we call it Shark Tank. If you use round robin or first to claim to initially distribute leads to your agents to ensure that you don't have any wasted efforts, and you're not losing any money with those leads, you can automate pushing leads to a pond if either you want to set some sort of accountability and consequence in place, or just move the lead over to the pond after so many days have passed so that other agents can try to reach the leads. So this use case is if you're not initially pushing a lead to a pond. So I'm going to share my screen and show you how this pond would work. So let's say you have new incoming leads for buyers and you're using an action plan called new buyer lead. I'm going to duplicate it just so I'm not interfering with the action plan I'm already using. And so let's say you have, you'd like to push a lead over to a pond if they're not reached after 7 days. So if you open up your action plan and scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to click add step and scroll all the way back up. And let's add 3 days. So it's on day 7. And let's add a tag to say, move to Shark Tank, something like that. You can also get more advanced and have accountability in place where you check for a call every day for the first 7 or 10 days, if you use 10 days of pain or 10 days of profit or something similar. And if those calls aren't being made, then you can also have that consequence where you reassign the lead to the pond and you set a note and notify the original agent saying this lead's moving to the Shark Tank because you didn't make 10 calls for 10 days. Anyway, that's for the more advanced users. So first you'll want to create the pond after creating that action plan, and then I'll show you how to create the automation. So to create the pond, you'll go to admin ponds. I've already created a Shark Tank, but essentially what you do is you click add pond. You can call it whatever you like. We'll call it Shark Tank. You have to select a lead of your pond, who is the head of the pond. The head pond agent or the lead pond agent, if you have any drips sending to leads, the drip campaigns send from this assigned agent, and any replies go to that assigned agent. So be mindful of that. Most people either use the team leader for this, or they create a dummy account that gets monitored that appears to be the team leader, but it gets monitored by virtual assistants and ISAs instead for a higher response rate whenever someone does respond to an automated text or email. So let's just pretend Angie is the team lead, and then we'll select the other people who can have access, and then you click save. Since I already have a Shark Tank, I'm not actually going to save it. And then you're going to create the automation. So to do that, you'll go to admin automations and add a new automation. We called that tag move to Shark Tank. Let's add some conditions here. Maybe you don't want to move someone to a Shark Tank if they don't have a good phone number. So we're going to say phone is good. Otherwise, there's no need to move to a pond. Just one example. And if you're doing the accountability approach, then you would use multiple tags in that action plan, like accountability number 1, accountability day 2, accountability day 3. And so you would add those as multiple tags, like accountability day 1, day 2, day 3. And you would add conditions to say, okay, phone has to be good or else they can't make a call. Last call was not made. And let's do just last call was more than, I do 2 days ago, just in case the lead comes in overnight. If you do that accountability approach. If not, and you're just moving to the Shark Tank after 7 days or 10 days, no need for that condition. Then you're going to select an action that reassigns the lead to the Shark Tank. And then what you can do is you can add a note so that you're aware this automation is happening. So I would say something like KTS automation is moving the lead to the pond. Lead was not reached after 10 days. Or if it's an accountability, you would say assigned agent did not make the 10 calls for 10 days or whatever it is. And then you can notify the assigned agent if you'd like, or you may not need to notify. And then click save and save and enable. So what will happen then is whenever you add the tag, if you're not using accountability, you just want to move to Shark Tank, then that just happens. If you are using accountability and you're doing it multiple times, check this box here where it says run multiple times. This allows the automation to run each time you want it checked. So on day 1, check it. On day 2, check for a call. On day 3, check for a call. And then once a lead gets moved over to a pond, there's no need to change the stage in any way. They can remain a lead stage. And once they get moved to a pond, then all other agents who are in that pond, if they use smart lists, those pond leads will show up in their smart lists to call them. The next use case is for Goldmine. Now, I put in all caps, use at your own risk, because the Goldmine, we can also call it resurrections, are people who have registered again or inquired, done a physical inquiry where they're filling out a form. They didn't just come back to your website. I say use at your own risk because these are people that previously said they're not interested or they don't want to work with you. But I call it a goldmine because these people would have possibly been missed if this wasn't set up. So the way it works for me for the stages I use is I use the stages contact, which means the lead's not interested. And I would also use the stage trash. Otherwise, you wouldn't know about these people if they re-inquire. But again, use at your own risk and be very careful. And if you have a team, perhaps only have certain people have access to this pond. So first, let's create the pond. Under admin ponds, you'll create the goldmine pond. And be mindful of who you're giving access to this to, and make sure that you have proper instructions in place. Then what you're going to do is create a smart list of these people in the gold mine. So for the smart list and the people in the gold mine, I call it resurrections. You can call it gold mine. On this far right side here, you're going to add filters. So my filters are, I'm going to show people only in the trash or contact stage with last activity less than 7 days ago, meaning they've come back to the website. And I'll show you how to filter out to only show actual physical form submissions and not just anyone looking at your website. And I want to see the people that are in the pond that got moved to the resurrected pond. And last communication was more than 7 days ago. You can also include another filter to only show people with good phone numbers. And so it's called a gold mine because these people would have gotten missed, and there very well could be money in those people that are staged as contact or trash, or if you use something like dead, for example. And then you're going to create the automation to automatically move someone to that resurrections pond. So let's create that automation under admin automations. You're going to click add automation and click new inquiry. We're going to add a condition where the stage is either contact or trash. Whoops, or trash. You may only want to show good numbers, so the phone number has to be good. And you want to ensure that they're not already in the pond. So exclude resurrected. And maybe you have like an absolutely not never like blacklist pond. You can create that blacklist pond so they don't keep showing up here. And you can exclude the blacklist pond if they're already there. And then the result is you're going to reassign it to the gold mine. And so you're going to say re-inquiry gold mine is the name of this automation, and then click save and save and enable. And so what this will do is once someone does a physical inquiry, if they meet the conditions you put in place, in this case, they have to be staged as contact or trash, they'll get moved to the gold mine. And if you'd like, you can add a note to say something like automation is moving this lead to the gold mine pond after submitting a form somewhere. And you can select to notify the pond if you'd like, and then click save and save and enable. And so what happens is the next time someone does an inquiry, then once they get moved over to the resurrection pond or gold mine pond, whatever you want to call it, we use resurrected. Goldmine pond, they'll show up in this smart list, but again, use at your own risk. Look at the notes, make sure that they don't belong in some sort of blacklist pond instead. Okay, next pond number 3 is a high priority pond. So this happens whenever a lead registers or inquires on your website. They will take high priority over someone just viewing something on your website. So if you have leads that are, let's say, older than 14 days old, never reached, you can create a pond for agents in your company to access the lead to ensure that everyone can see that lead. So in this case, you would create an automation, just like I showed you, where the trigger is property view, property save, or new inquiry. And the condition is stage equals, let's say, lead. Phone is good, and last call more than 7 days ago, just whatever types of filters you want to use. And then what you do is the lead can get reassigned to that high priority pond. You can also create a mid priority pond for people who viewed a listing, they didn't fill out a form physically. So you can separate it out and say, okay, high priorities only for people filling out a form, mid priorities for people who are only looking at our website, but they haven't registered or filled out a form again. 5th pond is vendor ponds. I know a lot of people can put their contractors or recommended vendors in Follow Up Boss as a stage, but then you can get lost in figuring out, wait, I'm just looking for our recommended title companies or recommended general contractors, recommended painters. Then you can use a pond to say, okay, here's a pond of all of our vendors I'm going to share with you in Follow Up Boss, but I'm going to create a drop down custom field showing the specific types of vendors. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what I mean. So create the pond. We just call it vendors so that you can share all of your recommended vendors to your agents and they can have quick access and can find them. You also would want to create a vendor stage so that they don't get in the way of the rest of your database. But then let's create a custom field. Note, you can only do this next part in the owner account. Go to admin custom fields. You're going to add a custom field and let's call it vendor type. We're going to make it a drop-down menu and say, okay, whenever I or another team member on my team wants to add a recommended vendor, we want to have preset types of vendors here. So they can select from the drop-down menu to be a painter or flooring or anything like that, general contractor, plumber, anything like that, and then click add. So once you do that, whenever you add a new vendor in Follow Up Boss, you'll be able to, let me just go ahead and create it again. Painter, flooring, electrician, let's just go with those. So let's say we add test vendor here. I'm not only going to move it to the vendor pond here, but I'm also going to select the type here to say it's a painter. And so what will be super helpful for your team is they can then quickly find a vendor. So they have access to all vendors that are added to the vendor pond. And they say, oh, I need to recommend a painter or two to my client. You'll say, okay, vendor type includes painter. And then they'll be able to see a list of only painters. That way you don't just have a giant list of a bunch of vendors and you don't know who is who. But then at the same time, you don't have a giant list of stages because you try to figure out, okay, maybe I need a stage for painters, a stage for flooring companies. But this way, your agents can just access the recommended vendors really quickly in Follow Up Boss. All communication between a vendor is logged in Follow Up Boss for any type of reason you may need to see that communication. So to recap so far, number 1 recommended pond is the Shark Tank. 2 is the gold mine. 3 high priority. 4 mid priority. 5 vendors. 6 is off market properties. So this option is for you if you have agents that prospect expires or FSBOs or other leads and they tell the agent that I would consider selling my home for the right price, but I don't want to put it on the market. This gives your company a better chance of winning those listings, even if they remain off market. So some teams, they may create like an off market spreadsheet, but our goal is to do as much as possible in Follow Up Boss directly. So you would create an off market property pond. And for privacy and compliance reasons, you would create a separate profile for that off-market listing, where the name of the listing or the name of the lead is the property address of 123 Main Street. And then you can put any information about that property in the notes. That way, whenever your buyer agents are working with buyers, if they want to see, they can't find a home that matches their needs, the buyer agents now have another competitive edge over other companies to say, well, let me reverse search our database to see if we have any sellers who have indicated they may want to sell for the right price that are would be off market and that match what you're looking for. And then the final one is referral agents. So similar to vendors, if you have a team that say, hey, who do we recommend in Tallahassee, Florida? Who do we recommend in Dallas, Texas? Instead of them bugging you or looking at a spreadsheet, these referral agents can be added to Follow Up Boss, where you create a referral agent stage. You can create a referral agent custom field of the location they serve, and you can create a referral agent pond. So below this video, I'll include the article I was sharing with you. I wrote out all of these ponds and step-by-step instructions. So if you prefer written instructions step-by-step, that's available through a really cool tool I recommend called Scribe.